Is it streaming? Hmm?
I think we're streaming. We're streaming.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, guys. We've been on holiday. We've been catching COVID the last 135,000 seconds. We've been going through something. We got a bit of COVID.
A little bit.
We did a little bit of traveling.
Mm-hmm.
We were on a roll and then it got broken up and we tried something else. And then we got a little bit of TikTok momentum.
I mean, we got 44 followers, which is impressive.
Have you not looked at the comments? One guy said, "This is real," something along the lines of, "This is really educational. TikTok hates wisdom."
What? Is that a new comment?
Yeah.
Whoa! Are we the best account on TikTok?
Most up and coming. Biggest up and coming.
TikTok hates wisdom. That's hilarious. Facts.
And so as we were creating...
I was about to say something that was going to get us banned, and I stopped myself.
Thank you so much. So as we were creating this content, we kind of realized a few things. We were doing videos about Tate, and we didn't want to do a disservice to ourselves. And also, he's very parabolic, and he touches on issues that are much more socially important than Tate.
I think is true for a lot of people. It's just Tate talks so much, and there's so much content out there, and a lot of which we're not familiar with. We aren't familiar with the underlying conversation that's being had. Whereas I think most people on the left and the right are saying surface level things about deep underlying problems within or between the left and the right. They're all manifestations, yeah.
And so there was I was watching a debate with some atheists and a Christian, and the guy who introduced them said, it's as if there's a heated debate in the barbershop. No one knows where it started, but people walk in, they sit down, they listen to the conversation. And after a while, they think they've listened long enough to actually be able to talk about the conversation themselves until they themselves leave. And so that is an analogy of kind of the big topics in society. No one was there when it was started. No one here was there when it started. We don't know how it really started, but we sit and we listen to the arguments long enough until we think we have an understanding and we contribute to what's going on. And we wanted an understanding of those deeper conversations before we could make those videos, because I think part of the value we were providing...
We're reacting blind.
Right.
That's
exactly.
the thing. We're reacting from emotion, and I don't think that...
It's that valuable.
Exactly.
We don't want to be like a Tate or a Peterson reaction channel.
Exactly.
Where we just go, wow, or like,
can't believe
true,
you just said that. Yeah.
You know what right? I think the reason people comment these nice things about this is really valuable, this deserves more views, etc., is because we've taken the time to kind of get a deeper understanding of the topic.
But I also think the reason that people comment that is because stuff on TikTok, the things that people say are quite I've got an opinion, there's no nuance here, this person's either right or they're wrong. Like, I agree or I fundamentally disagree. Whereas I think if you see what we put out there, it wasn't clear what we believed.
No.
It was very much like, we're going to look at it from both sides and we're not making value judgments about either. And I think that's why a very small number of people were able to appreciate that, but like really appreciate that. Whereas I think the stuff that blows up on TikTok is,
it confirms
this
what you like.
Sucks, and I'll tell you why this sucks. Or wait a minute, Tate's right, they're taking away our masculinity or whatever. And there's very little like, let's try to look at it from both sides. Yeah.
Exactly. And so what we've been trying to do is deep dive on these topics that Tate has touched upon. And then today Mario was like, bro, can we so what we've been trying to work on is our wants. So last weekend we tried really hard to clarify what we wanted. I wanted to upcycle people, bad name, but it's help elevate people, not put them into some kind of human processing plant. So it's to help elevate people. Started with myself, to my friends, my family, and then to the wider community. And if we can create a tool together, that tool can help more people than either of us individual can. And then the question is, okay, that's great, and we have lots of ideas of different tools, but which is the first tool we should create? And Mario said the visualization tool would be a great place to start because she sees a lot of practical value to that. So let's get right into it. What I liked what you just said was, so it's great to start with a problem. And that problem is there's too much information. So there's too much information on the internet. And now there's a spooky thing that's happening. If I were to, I tried this yesterday because I saw a video on it. If I open Bing and I type in a certain date where certain individuals went to a certain place in America, do you understand? A certain date where individuals stormed a very pale looking building. If you type in that date, 2 words, the month and the number, and you scroll to the bottom. I don't think if you say the date, it will get us banned. Probably not, but it's also fun to
see if people can figure out. When you zig, they think you're gonna zag.
And you type that in, and you scroll to the bottom, and you go to the 5th page. And you scroll to the bottom, and you go to the 7th page. So you can only skip when you get to the end of the 5. You can only skip by 2, and then 2 and 2 and 2. So you keep scrolling to the bottom and just keep skipping by 2. You keep getting the same articles over, the exact same articles. CNN, CNBC, Fox News, Wikipedia, again, the exact same one, even though you're scrolling deeper. And at the top it says, we've got 8 million results in like 0.001 microsecond, but you can't see them. And because they've limited, because you can't go to page 100 straight away, you have to 2-step your way to 100. It's basically impossible to get to the to get into information that isn't cherry picked by the search engine. So not only is there too much information, the access, little Timmy, a little bio over here, there's this massive pool of information, more than I could ever watch in 10 lifetimes. And I use a search engine. This is going to be an hourglass. I use a search engine to try and discover different information. But this search engine is being created by a system that is misaligned to my human interests. Let's just put it that way. And so these are problems facing mainly the youth, right? Because old people don't really understand the internet, and they can probably live out the rest of their pension not really understanding the internet. But
not only the youth, because we're not really the youth, but people our age for the next, hopefully,
Inshallah,
90 years going strong.
Wow.
I'm trying to live, bro. I'm
trying to live. Your back's already aching, respectfully.
I'm on my period.
True, that's going to end in, inshallah, 40 years.
And not a moment early.
So we begin with a problem. And that problem is there's too much information on the internet. What else would you like to say?
So what I was saying is, I think because and I just want to talk to you, forget this. The problem for me with the internet is, unless you engage with content, says it there. Problem there's two.
Oh
Um, unless you engage with content, the infinite amount of information, you can't really judge the quality of it. So back in the day, what you used to have with books is you'd have people that reviewed books, and they would tell you this is a good book and this is a bad book, right? That doesn't really happen with content today. It kind of does in views and likes, I guess, but I think there's a lot of misalignment with, but also I think there's a lot of like, the problem with that sort of stuff is that it's not clear what the like is saying. The like could be, I like this person, I want to support this person, and therefore I'm going to like this. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the best take on the topic, or this is the best version of this thing, or the best visualization of this thing, or the best commentary on a particular issue. And so we need...
So Facebook tried to create nuance with their like, right? Because Facebook is this, right? It's the thumbs up. And then in when was it? It was like 2013-ish. They tried to create the thing where it was like, or like, ooh, or like, love. So you can do more than just like. You can try and provide nuance to your reaction of that topic.
Sure. Again, I feel like there's a problem with that, because the sort of things that you're engaging with are, people can see that it's you and you're reacting to your friend's stuff. So for the most part, you're not going to be honest.
Okay.
So we need to address that. We need to address the problem of the problem of likability or popularity should not mean that you are just upvoted because you're the most popular dude. It should be like, okay, I'll tell you where I'm going with this. We have a crap ton of information on the internet. What we need to do is sift through that information, but not us. We need to sift through that information and find the nuggets of gold, right? But how do you do that? How do you find...
So I've had a thing which is a requirement for users. It's sorting and sequencing. So they sort through this big mass of data, let's say a few things a day, and they sequence. Then once that's, so you have the mass of data here, it gets either thrown in the bin, or it's not useful for the community, or it is useful for the community. Instead of throwing it in the bin, might be a bit more accurate. And the things that are deemed useful by the community by a particular user then get passed on to another user, or the same user at a different time, who then sequences this information. So it says, okay, out of all these things, this one's the coolest, this one's the second coolest, this one's the third coolest, this one's the fourth
That's
coolest.
really difficult, though. That's really difficult to do. So that's, the sorting's fine. The difficult part of this would be sequencing in that way. I think it should be like a versus. It makes more sense when it's like a straight up versus. You have X, Y, which one's better? X is better than Y, and you've got X. What about Z? Oh no, Z is better than X.
Okay.
And then you'll ask another user, is Z better than Y? And they're like, 90% of the time it's like, yeah, Z is better than Y.
So Z is first.
Z is number one, and you rank accordingly.
But
what I envisioned just now when I was reading about infographics and stuff is you have a sandbox, and you have a thing, and it's not just a video. It's like it could be from a video. The thing comes from something. Like, from us. It was a tape video, which led us to what are traditional values, or what is conservatism.
They lead to
or what
a
is...
deeper, older social topic.
Exactly, and it can be linked to that, but I guess that was from the layering, right? So you have tape here, and then it leads to this this wider thing, and this video in itself will lead to a bunch of other stuff. So it will lead to this, it'll lead to that, but right now we're talking about this. So let's say this is conservatism. Then you have like Aristotle, then you have Edmund Burke, then you have like what was his name, the American conservative dude. So you have Jordan Peterson, like the Ben Shapiro's. Those are just people associated with it, right? And that could be, instead of this, it could be people. And then it goes all of those people, right? And this could be something else.
Like values or ideals.
Exactly. And how that changed over time. Now, this topic has led to, like, what we're doing is we're grouping information. Now you have that leads to this, which leads to that. Then from here you have like, you showed me a video about what's it called?
Hegemony.
Hypergamy, right?
Hypogamy.
You showed me a video and I was like, dude doesn't even explain what hypergamy is.
In that clip.
In that clip, but you showed me that clip. You thought it was valuable enough to show me that clip, and I was like, that's trash. So then you'll have that video, but then that's just one man's opinion in it. So you have that video versus, and I find a video and I'm like, bro, this like covers the whole thing. So then you have, that's the verses here where Jordan Peterson is linked to, he's talking about hypergamy, which is, or let's say conservatism. You show me a video and I'm like, that's trash. I show you a video and you're like, oh, I guess that's kind of cool. And then you have people, the interactivity would also be linked here, where you have people vote. This is upvoted. This is like, basically no one votes for this. You have that, which is voted for. Then, until someone comes and says, guys, I found the perfect Jordan Peterson video on conservatism, then you have a new video that comes along here. So remember when we were in Chorley, not this time, but last time.
What, the time?
The time.
Okay.
And we were talking about this, like, you show someone a new clip where one dude's like, this is the greatest shit I've ever seen, right? Like that guy. If you gave that guy the opportunity to, like, the guy who's like, TikTok doesn't like wisdom, you gave him the opportunity to hold on to that nugget that he'd found. Remember you describing it to me, where you trade it, or you choose to pass it on, or you exchange it for something else or whatever. You could do that, where you present one dude with this new clip, then he comes in and he's like, this is like the supreme ranking clip so far. This guy's like, guys, I've got the nugget. And then you put that up, and then that goes against that, and you see if that has the power to displace it. But we have to deal with the problem of, like, popularity of like creators almost, because it's what we don't want to do is, we don't want it to be that the most popular creators have the stuff that's at the forefront. And what I mean by that is, you have some people who don't really make many valid points, but because they're historically popular, it's like pop music isn't the best music, it's just the most popular music, which means something. But there's also absolute gold that no one listens to, right? So we need to find a way to overcome that, get the gold to come to the surface, so it's not just about popularity.
And so there's a thing we've been talking about is, so a lot of it is about acceptance It's not just about good or bad.
Mhm.
And one thing that we accepted is there's something to, we don't quite label the grouping, but there's something to being like, I knew it, which I did. I knew Ed Sheeran back when he was on SBTV in a field with a guitar.
Mhm.
Before he was on,
Which I did. See that?
Right? There's something satisfying about that. There's something alluring about that. You see it all the time. I knew this band before they're popular, or now that they're popular, I don't like them anymore. Type vibe. And so perhaps we could take that human phenomenon and incorporate it into the design of this system, where if you find that nugget,
yeah, you when it rises, you kind of rise with it.
Yeah. And then, so I like the idea of, so there's a thing in games where
That's cool, because then it's more emphasis on the individual and your personal wants rather than just supporting someone else, because it's not it's not just about, if you really like Jordan Peterson, but then you find a clip from some unknown guy and you're like, this bangs. You attach yourself to that, and then you're not going to support Jordan Peterson just because you're attached to that thing. You're not attached to that individual forever. It's just you have a ranking, and it's, well, Mayo holds 1 platinum card, and that card is like 1 platinum video. You know what I mean? Like, he was the finder of the nugget, right? So yeah, that
and
could
so
help.
Here's something that happens with memes, and I think memes, we could really, like, I was thinking of calling it meme or something like that, because memes are more than just whatever, and it has a lot of cultural significance with our generation. And this is a phenomenon that you've realized as well. You'll say you've realized it, I'm just formulating it. Is you'll have usually a meme generation website. So if you're more edgy, it would be like 4chan, and also a bit older. You'd have Reddit. You used to have 9gag.
It still exists.
Yeah, but
Does no one use it?
I've not. You know, I just feel like this is very old. This is pretty damn old, and this is kind of still relevant, but dying.
Twitter?
There we go. Perfect. Yeah, you have Twitter. You have the bird. So you have these kind of meme generation platforms. They're just basic areas where people congregate. And then with this user-to-user exchange, right, that takes place on the platform, that is unique to each. So just how you're different when you're talking to your family in Pakistan to when you're talking to your friends from high school, these users, this user here could be the same user, but the way they're memeing and the way they're interacting with people is different on 4chan to Reddit to 9gag to Twitter. Here it's probably toxic as hell. Here it's probably toxic as hell, and here it's probably toxic. It's actually probably toxic everywhere. That's an interesting thing about anonymity. Okay. So the nuances of these interactions then can create, it's a symbol for create, a meme, right? So we'll just put a shape to this meme. Let's say it's a triangle. Now here's the thing that I wanted to talk about. This meme then gets reposted, right? It gets reposted to Reddit, then it goes to TikTok, then it might go to Twitter, then it might go to Instagram, and on Instagram there are so many of these meme pages, and they're just copying it from these sources, they're copying it from here, they're copying it from one another.
Yeah, like literally, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's somewhere a meme is generated, it's distributed, and then people start copying it. And that's where the deep fried meme came from. Is because if you take a print screen of something and then someone print screens a print screen, because of compression, it gets worse quality. But it kind of adds to the funniness of it because it looks so cute. And the one desire is to accept that this happens, not try and fight it. Right? So the music industry is like, what? People share music. Because, like, if I have an Eminem album I'm going to burn it. I'm going to give it you because I know you love Eminem.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the next whatever album, you're going to burn it if you can, and you're going to give it me. And that's a human thing. We share things we like. So instead of being like copyright infringement and we're going to create this entire algorithm to scrape every single video, and if you play more than 15 seconds, we're going to strike you and take you to... Bro, you're not going to stop humans sharing. like contain yourself. Like, you know what I mean? What do you call it? Like ground yourself or whatever. You're not God. So instead of going against the tide, accept the tide's coming and create a system where each individual user, so this circle in this case is a user, is sharing these memes, and as these memes are being transferred, have some type of, speaking kind of badly now, have some type of ledger associated with it. So you can have this separate to the meme, or this can be an overlay onto the meme. So that's, for example, when you take a picture, you can have geolocation attached to the image. Similarly, you can have a little box in the corner, or you can put layering or metadata onto the meme to show where it came from. And then, so when someone sees this meme at this point, this individual gets some kind of benefit from it. And even if that benefit isn't financial, even if that benefit isn't what someone who's a boomer might say is meaningful, at least you can...
is meaningful.
Exactly. At least you can definitively call back to where it came from without having to be a meme historian. Excuse me. Do you want coffee? Because it's 12. 12:15. Damn. See, that's the grind set right there. That's the mamba. Now, I'm a real big fan of games. Okay. And the reason is, as a user, you interact with some type of system. And every time it's an interaction, right? Whereas if you're on TikTok, right, it's giving you information, right? If you're on Reddit, right, it's giving you information. And the only way you can interact back, really, right, is the comment section. Right? So here I was just explaining my love for interactivity and how with TikTok, it's giving you information. With Reddit, it's giving you information. And the only real way to interact with it is, with both TikTok and Reddit, is the comment section. And the comment section themselves leave much to be desired. The way people talk to each other's tapped, you know, because it's so removed from typical human engagement. People are interacting as if it's humans. Right? I don't see their face. I don't hear them. I don't live near them. They don't know who I am. All these different factors means that you just type however you're feeling. You just lay it out. It's like your personal diary, basically, that gets published towards someone. Whereas this interactivity is something that I really value. So please continue.
Yeah. So
what's your understanding? What's your resistance?
I don't have any resistance to what you've said because I've heard it before.
Yeah. I mean, not the resistance to this, but the resistance when you were sat on the sofa.
So my resistance to the thing we were doing was that I felt like it was just mind mapping. So the visualization tool became something that it wasn't. And so I think that we need to, when we're creating, what I mean, like why I wanted to get an understanding of this before we move forward, is keeping that in mind. I think we need to kind of understand where we're going before we start creating the stuff that we're going to with the conservative ideals and stuff like that, instead of simply mind mapping it. Whether it's like physically and we have literally just an idea, because what we're doing here is we're just trying to we're trying to chisel away at the visualization tool. So if that's just conceptually, that's sick. We'll have something completely mapped out for creation later on. It's not actually creating something today. I think we need to play around with some stuff and see what looks and feels the best. Like where there should be more interactivity, where there should be less, blind spots we have, where people are going to abuse the thing. Like it's going to happen. Like people are going to find a way to kind of. Some people just want to watch the world burn, kind of.
Monkeys love breaking. Like there's a monkey within us that just loves to break a thing. And that's why I get really frustrated at these amazing AIs that are going to take away writers and digital artists and real artists' jobs and whatever, and bots and people who chat. Because you can't just use it. You have to sign up. You have to be clouted. You have to be like, oh, I'm a YouTuber with X amount of whatever. Can I get a key, please? And then they might give it you. Otherwise, you pretty much don't get it. Or like, I'm a professor at whatever. Give me a key, and they might give it you. A normal person basically can't get the key to these things.
Well,
and why
there
do
are
I
some
want?
free stuff.
But the free versions are trasher.
No. It's literally, there's one that's open source that's good enough to rival Lambda. That's completely open source. It's not like the others.
Oh, so I'm talking about the one where you type something and it gives you an image.
Oh yeah, that one's just, that was like a TikTok thing, right?
But sure, yeah, we can have a look at that. And the reason why I want to get my hands on it is because I want to try and input certain types of things to make it look silly or to make it break. That's a monkey desire in me, right? Like, how can I try and abuse this system? And again, acceptance, right? Sure, we don't want a system that just collapses and like no one can use it for weeks because there's this gaping hole in it. But at the same time, accept that there's going to be a natural arms race between people trying to break it and abuse it and other people trying to fix it. And you can also put in things. So, for example, what a lot of large companies now do is they say, if you manage to hack our stuff and you tell us first, we'll pay you.
Ethical hacking.
Instead of being like, this guy in his basement in Russia hacked our stuff, please, drone strike their house. Like, you accept that there's gonna be guys tinkering, there's gonna be girls trying to, abuse the thing. Accept that and try and work with it. So you said something. Okay, I think there are two parts to the visualization tool. There's the physical thing that the user interacts with, and there's the mental. Now let's give an example. In the past, the physical would have been a book. The mental would have been systems and ideas and values. The user interacts with this book really like the book is giving the user information, but whatever. The user interacts with this book, and then that builds these things. If they truly reading critically, like you read about and you taught me about, like you're not just looking at the words and being like, yeah, okay. You're trying to get an idea of the concept. You're trying to get into the perspective of the writer, and trying to, if they use just 3 words that sound very similar, instead of being annoyed, being like, why? What's the nuances between these words? Really trying to grasp these things. And that allows you to take these ideas with you and use those ideas at other times in your life. And it also cultivates your mind. It sharpens your mind. And so these are the two, so taking that this kind of duality and applying it to what we want to create, we have the visualization tool, the digital thing that people interact with. And you have the ideals and the people and the ledgers and things that people can take with them. And they also get a sharpened mind from interacting with these tools. These are things that they can take away from the game and get a visualized tool even when they're not using it. And the thing that they take away will naturally be a lot more boring, will naturally be a lot less new. So you were saying you don't like the idea of doing something that's not new. Now, obviously, you said it yourself, there's nothing new under the sun.
I mean, I don't want to do something completely new. I want to build on something. But it felt like we weren't really building on something. We were just using a thing. Like we were using an existing thing. Not even in a new way. That's what I mean. But I don't want to just do that with people, because to me that it's already done. If people wanted to do it, they'd do it. I want to build on existing stuff. That's it.
So let's go here. Let's go here. Like, all right, let's work on this and define this for me, for you and for me. So
intuitively, are you there?
So I'm on the sentence level. I'm not on the definitional level of what you mean by build and what you mean by stuff. What I mean by build is, in the next, let's say before the year's ended, I want to have taken money out of my bank account, given it to coders and maybe visual artists, and they're in the process of building an app or a website, something like that. That's what I mean. That's what I kind of envision by build. It's either that, or my more creative side wants to have a type of comic book, anime type narrative thing that we're like a storytelling arc thing that we're doing, and that's simply meant to encapsulate the zeitgeist. Like it's meant to get at the way kids see the world and millennials see the world, and portray that in a way that resonates with them, to kind of garner interest.
In what?
In us. Right. So, for example, sometimes you have a game like Dota 2, and then that game gets turned into an animation series. And sometimes you have an animation series or a comic book like Marvel, and that gets turned into a game. So you can do it both ways. You can kind of create a narrative and a story that resonates with people and then create a thing, or you can create the thing and then create a narrative that goes along with it. So that's what I mean. That's my go-to thought when I think of build.
Okay.
So
what
do you mean by that?
here build on, I mean you'll have, and so for example, you have the idea of conservatism. And the first, let's say, iteration of this came from Aristotle. And that persists over time. And then the next guy is called like Stephen, who took what Aristotle did to conservatism and chiseled away at it, or added another layer for the new world, right? Fast forward to Burke, who took what Stephen did. Stephen's not a real person. Took what Stephen did and again understood Aristotle, understood Stephen, added a layer, took away stuff that's no longer relevant, right? So you have that's Stephen built on Aristotle, Burke built on Stephen, and so on and so forth, right? And people
go away.
People have the tendency, or not people, well, it happens in ideas, but it also happens with tools, right? Where you'll have
like a stone knife.
Like the calculator has a long history, right? It comes from the abacus, and there was a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, which was like the calculator of the 1000 or whatever.
Middle Ages or whatever.
Yeah. So that's, and they've built upon existing technologies to come to this thing, and then the calculator was put into our phones, right? So that's what I mean, build upon. So you have existing tools that are used. So you have infographics. You have mind maps. You have bar charts. You have pictures.
Timeline.
Drawings.
Timelines.
You have timelines. Oh my god.
Why don't you rate the timelines?
I don't not rate the timelines. It's just I'm not trying to list every single thing here, pal.
Why not? What else is there?
Trying to explain the concept.
Because my understanding is that's basically it.
There are loads of ways to visualize stuff.
Okay.
There are videos. Right? Oh,
you can just go here.
It's always me. Just a little bit. Yeah. You have all these things. What I mean by build upon, I mean we either combine, we take a mind map, we zhuzh the mind map, make it like
dazzle,
add a layer on top, give or combine this with this and use it, apply it in a way that.
But that's exactly what we were doing. We were taking a mind map, we were animating it, and we were layering it on top of a video. That is not a mind map. That's multiple things together. It's 3 things together.
It's not enough.
So that's what I want to get to.
Yeah.
It's not enough for you because of certain ideals, visions, values, and that's what I want to get to here.
Well, also because you might be doing something new that isn't adding that much value. Like you could combine a shoe with a calculator and a razor, but you haven't made anything. You know what I mean? Like you haven't, or you can combine a piece of paper with a piece of card with a piece of like Velcro, right? And it's like, those are 3 flat surfaces, right? You put them together and you don't have anything new. That's what I mean by you can combine stuff and still not build upon it. Build upon kind of requires progress of sorts. Like, there's clear progress from the abacus to the calculator. There's clear
Why?
progress.
Because it's faster.
Yep.
It's easier to use.
Yep.
Probably cheaper too.
Probably more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
More people can use it. The requirement to learn is reduced.
Mm-hmm.
It's intuitive. All of these things. What we were doing, I don't think does enough to reach that threshold of build upon, or at least in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you might think that it has. In my eyes, it doesn't really do that, because for whatever reason.
But it's not whatever reason, right? Like because
it's just words. It's still just words. All we've done is take the thing and put it into words, and
animate it a bit.
We haven't animated it at all. All we've done is like draw lines between points, which is fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. I just don't think that for most people that is an intuitive form of visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? The same would be true if we made it too abstract, where we take concept and we turn it into a picture. I think if it requires a lot of like, oh, I have to spend hours trying to figure out what this is, that also isn't intuitive visualization. Like,
so I think
for me,
there's a natural trade-off between intuitive understanding and localization.
what's that mean?
So if I was just talking to gamers who play MOBAs is like a style of game,
Mm-hmm.
I could make loads of metaphors, because you have two opposing sides.
Mm-hmm.
You have three ways to get to each other. You have an area in the middle that's kind of like no man's land, where there's kind of like baddies that no side belongs to.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use that structure to explain lots of different topics.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can say, because it's basically yin and yang, and you can use yin and yang to kind of, it's kind of like the fundamental opposite. You can use that to explain lots of things. So if I was just talking to people who played MOBAs, I could make a visualization that was very quick to grasp to those people.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone outside of that group
wouldn't know.
Would be like, maybe gamers would be like, I kind of get it. But after that, you have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's just unique to this particular example. I think that's a fundamental trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
So then the question is, how can we target the demographic, and what commonalities do those demographics have?
Mm-hmm.
And then be intuitive to them, as opposed to be intuitive to people in the West or people who speak English. It might work, but I just have a little bit of an inkling that it might not, that we'd end up starting to use words again as a metaphor goes.
Mm-hmm. So what we thought about yesterday, or what I thought about, was try to use what language did and implement that into the visualization tool. So come up with a visualization language that's universal. And once you have, if you have the key and you have the thing, then you should be able to understand it. Over time, it'll become intuitive to you, just like languages. You and I both know what it means to be sad and happy. I don't need to say much more than that. Hungry, depressed, you just kind of know, right? The same will be true with visualization language. So, because I understand what you're saying, but I'd have to see it. I think that maybe where there's less in common with our demographic as a whole, because if our goal is also to go to Africa and go to kids, do they share the same demographic or the same age group? Is that same overlap? Can we still use the same tool if we create it in a particular way? Or will we have to create a new tool or redo the whole thing again for people in different countries? Because we could probably do something for Gen Z here, possibly, though I can't really imagine it. But that would have to come from you, because that's not as intuitive to me as it is to you. What I wanted to say here was that there's a balancing act now. Not a balancing act, sorry, that's wrong. You have the thing that we created, right, was pretty cool in the sense that like when we mapped the Tate on Western women choosing not to have kids, you had like this, you had and then this point, this point, like whatever, right? It carried on like this. Right? The reason that I went in this direction is because I think there's something there too. This is just not it. Like the thing that we were doing with Chomsky was, I guess, closer to the thing, whereas this was just literally mapping the conversation. So this is Tate.
I'm just thinking of the Chomsky one. I feel like the Chomsky one was like, sure, it wasn't the exact same.
I keep getting pain in my leg.
Leg?
Yeah. Like sharp pains at my leg side. I
want to cherish these last few days. Should we go to Cinnabon just in case?
Cinnabon?
But I feel like how are they different to you? The Chomsky one, like obviously Chomsky one.
See, the difference was this was a conversation, whereas this was, I think, easier to map out because it was dates. It was about the progression of the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas this was, it was difficult because there's no cohesion in what he's saying. He was going which was quite difficult, and I guess that's why it's difficult to map out conversations because of the human tendency when you're not like really precise with your shit and you haven't researched, like Chomsky's researched this to get here, right? So I think that's why that was easier, Chomsky. But a lot of things aren't going to be like Chomsky, and so we have to well, it depends.
Come on, the way he laid it out was really clear. Like, sure, he did a bit of bouncing, but he had like dates, and the dates pretty much went from like 0 to 10 in terms of like linear, and then he had like one topic, and then he moved on to the second topic, and then it was quite for conversation, and it wasn't conversation. Yeah, it was like a speech. It was a speech. Yeah. So it was even easier because you don't have multiple parties saying things. You don't have back and forth giving their own. Yep. You're right. And so, like, what do you think of the one I did about white? I guess what the problem is that we took that, applied it to this, the timeline-ish tool, and applied it to conversation, and the value was kind of muddied is a word. Or like muddled. That's the word. Muddled might be a word. Convoluted. Wrecked. What time is it? Probably past. Okay, 30 minutes. Cool. I'm not hungry. I'm not eating. Okay. I put a lock on the fridge. Okay. You clearly haven't seen me hungry. I'm like a bear. Yeah, but you also have a sore knee and a bad back, so I think I'm okay today. No! My weakness! So yeah. So what? And the reason I brought this up is the value that I saw from this and from this were kind of the same. Well, the value that I envisioned for this, but I don't think it was really captured. But the value that I saw for this was when we were talking about like podcasts or investing your time into shit, and before you invest your time into shit, you kind of know what's happening. Yeah. Apart from just like the clickbaity title, because another reality is people use clickbaity titles. Yeah. Oh mate, that's so annoying.
It is annoying, but if everyone does it and you don't, it's
No,
like
you have to-
corruption
yeah.
in Nigeria.
Yeah.
If everyone does it, then you're a mug if you don't do it, because
Yeah.
you're gonna fail in life.
Yeah.
So the summary and the I guess transparency was kind of captured with that version of the tool that I don't want to leave behind. So we need whatever we create still has to, or whether it's like, so here, it can be a separate layer in itself where you want the smallest layer or whatever, and it leads to this. But there needs to be a version that encompasses that.
So, with Schweib's idea, so Schweib wants to change the way people move their bodies and the different way they treat movement and sports. And you kind of start with one thing here, and I want an overview of how Schweib sees things.
That's not how you pronounce his name.
How do you say it?
Shoaib.
No, there's like a sound that's not English.
Bro, it's Shoaib.
Schweib.
It's not Schweib. His dad doesn't call him Schweib. So why are you calling him Schweib? He calls him Shoaib. Well, they call him Pony.
Oh, it was like his kid name.
Yeah, but his name's Shoaib.
Schweib,
yeah.
Schweib.
No, stop.
The way he said it, bro, it wasn't like Schweib.
That's not how I'm saying
there
it.
was a bit of a, you know what I mean, a little bit of, and that's what I'm trying to do, bro.
Why?
To be authentic.
But you're saying it wrong.
Yeah, well,
you're
I'll
taking
ask him.
Authenticity away from it. It's Shoaib.
Okay, so here's the thing. Individually, they'll be like, okay, we'll make this video, make this video, make this video. This will be a series about this, and we'll comment about this. All of a sudden, we don't know what's going on because there's dots all over the place. So what I suggested was, as you scale out, where the fuck have you gone, bro?
I'm listening. I don't need to be here.
There are different, so you have a broad scale where it's like this, and there's like, you know, walking and fucking jumping and shoes. And then when you zoom in to, you know, jumping, then you have all these different concepts. Another infographic, so to speak. And then when you zoom in, then you have the individual things that we're going to do. So maybe we can't have it can't just be one thing that we show, because what we did at the start, we showed everything, right? To give an overview. And then we zoomed in and moved to the individual things.
Well, because the thing that we showed wasn't, and that's why we created the super summary. It's how can you accurately depict the whole thing for transparency and summary by using the least amount of shit. And we came up with like a sentence, and then we said the sentence, right? Fine. How do we take that sentence, visualize it without us having to create a video, is what I mean. Right? Don't lose that. So that would be attached if you have the extension. Every time you go into a YouTube video that's been analyzed, you have that super summary for transparency.
Can you remember what the text was on the super summary?
Yeah, it was so in the video, so Tate asks what women will do if they don't have kids. The girls responded with, the girls responded with focus on their careers, make money, and Tate said it was selfish to not have kids or something. I don't know, I can't remember exactly, but it was something along those lines. Like everyone should have kids.
Let's see what
Copy and
happens
paste
here.
it. Copy it so you can use it in another one.
Let's see what it does with this. I don't think it'll even get angry Tate.
No. Where's it from?
Deepai.org. It's gonna be nonsense. It's gonna. Let's see what it pops out.
But it doesn't have to be an image. It
Yeah,
can
I
be
know,
like
yeah.
if we gave that.
Oh, okay.
If we gave that to a graphic designer or we gave that to a storyteller, what picture or what GIF?
Oh. Lord.
What?
What is that? Jesus Christ! That was so cursed.
Wow.
Yeah, that wasn't useful. In fact, that was less than useful.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what can we give to someone who can create a summary of that isn't just words? Whether it's a GIF, whether it's a, like, we need to find a way for it to be like sequenced with not only words.
Can I get like a 2-minute break? I need to think about what's happened.
What this?
No, about what you said.
Okay. I can't believe you didn't buy me crisp wine. What am I supposed to eat? You only thought about yourself. You make me come here, then you don't even cater to my needs.
They're not your needs.
They're my needs.
They're your addictions.
It's not an addiction.
It absolutely is.
Yo, first of all, chill out. I'm changing my life so much.
Says you.
I'm waking up.
Don't
Bro.
even speak about.
I bought you granola bars. What do you mean?
You didn't. No, Julian.
We collectively. Who do you think told him you like granola bars? When we were in the co-op and he was like, oh yeah, granola bars are always on offer. I was like, always on offer, you scumbag. Do you understand that Bio would bathe in those if he had the choice? And now, right? He gets them for you every time he sees them on offer, right?
Don't
so
talk
where
to me
did that come
about
from? Where did that come from?
waking up. Okay.
Bro, first of all.
I work better 12 hours from now.
No, you don't. You've convinced yourself that that's the truth. It's not.
My parents.
Human beings.
My parents are retired. My dad goes to sleep at 5, 4, 3 in the morning.
Bro, are you guys not human? Or do you guys just have bad habits?
Or am I a dancer? Let me just...
Huh?
Why are we arguing, okay?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, we can go get some crisps. I didn't have my wallet on me. Fucked up. I was tired.
Don't. Almost done.
There's a time and place when you can swear. It's just not swearing all the time.
No, not on the stream. There might be kids. So Candace's impressionable.
True.
So stop.
I messed up.
I always swear. Just don't swear on the stream.
I didn't realise we were streaming on the
Okay. Sorry, kids.
Sorry.
Daddy doesn't mean it.
So the traditional modern Silicon Valley behavior is to take a process that is done by physical machines, human beings, or animals, and automate that process.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in the past, a taxi driver would have a piece of paper, a bunches of pieces of paper, a book of the city layouts, and he would go over that when he's driving somewhere until he has that in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
He would then, once it's in his mind, try and guesstimate the fastest way to get somewhere, or intuitively have an understanding. Now we have phones, GPS, whatever, and now we can automate that process. Type in the destination, and we pretty much know the fastest route. So that's a way to take things and automate them.
You know, do you know what they were talking about? Do you know what they?
The T value is to take things and put human beings in between them.
Yep.
Now the question to you now is, do we wish to automate the system to help with scale?
Yes.
And mass, or do we wish to incorporate human beings so that human beings have something to do?
Okay, so both, definitely. The more we can automate at the beginning, the better. So we create like a library of stuff that's already done, right? To show the value, to showcase the value, whether it's to users or investors or whatever, you know what I mean? To attract people. So if we can, we should. The problem there is I can't see a way in which to do that yet. That's not to say the reason, I'm so sorry. The reason that I said, what's the minimum amount we can say to someone, pay them, and they can draw it for us, that was just to help you visualize that we have this one extreme where it's just words. The other extreme is a picture or like a graphic visualization of this thing. What's the thing in the middle? We need to find the thing, the nugget in between the two that can both be done. In the beginning, you and I can go through videos. We can create a nice little library. I trust us. We have a lot of spare time. We're unemployed. and we can use AI tools, open source stuff. Like, what's that combination of the two, us and it, that we can create this library? That's what I mean. It's not that we just want to pay people. That's not it, especially not at the beginning. Later on, the more popular videos, for example, if we find a creator and they want to showcase their work, whether we're like, it would probably be a good idea if you were to, like, this video's got a lot of traction. Do you want to create like a visualization in your own image that can go alongside that, and then people get exposed to that because they're interacting with that thing anyway? That's a cool way to get people interacting with creatives, because you're like, oh my god, that's sick. Has this person done something else? Because that was really intuitive. Like, I understood literally just looking at it. Like that sort of stuff. But that's like a later consideration. Right now, it's finding that combination. So like actually sitting down and thinking, what is the perfect combination between our input and computer input today?
So in the past, I know you said things in the past don't have to necessarily be whatever. In the past, I envisioned two users seeing each other, and they would be in the distance.
Yeah.
And then you can choose to walk towards that person or walk away. If you walk towards that person, that's the first decision. So that's if you're like really, really far away. I mean, like if you're on the same plane, basically. You can plod towards each other or walk away. So let's say we both plod towards each other. That's one type of communication. Then when you get closer, you can have like little flags, where it's like a red flag and then a blue flag, because that's how sailors would ships would communicate. It would show one flag, then another, then another.
Whether they were open to trading or whatever.
Or even if you're in the same platoon, it'd be like get further away or flank So they would communicate with this. And then when you get really close, you'd be like, oh, just speak to each other. But what if one's Chinese and one is South African?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can. So I think you. So this is what I mean by when you're like input, and then connecting those inputs,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you sit down in another country and you're at a bar, you're at a cafe or whatever, and you don't know the language, and someone's friendly, like a friendly older person, is like, oh, I'm going to teach you some stuff. They'll be like, bag, zip, good. And then might be like, good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you try. You
Mm-hmm.
say like, good bag.
Mm-hmm.
So you have things that are defined, units that are brought to the surface or brought to the conversation, brought to the sandbox, and then users link those things together. That's one way communication emerges naturally when people are around one another. And so that's what I envisioned, that I wouldn't be the one who defines that this means this and this means that and this means this and this color means that and that texture means that. I would try just out because I'm the first one. I have to create that library.
But you need to create a basis upon which to signal that you're supposed to communicate. Like that. Like everything
absolutely.
Needs a basis upon which it is built. So
what
we need to provide
I would do like
an
example, right? Like
or like a bunch of things, and then you're like, if you find something more intuitive than this, show us. That's it. That's that. But you need the original things so that if some people are creative, some people will do those things, other people aren't. Like the fact that they were able to do that is that they have the bag. That's the foundation.
Yeah.
Right? They also have the language. That's the foundation.
Well, one of them does.
They both have language though. They both have the ability to speak, and they both have language. Languages. Like if you're in Spain, then maybe you want to teach that person Spanish.
Because we're starting with children, kind of, in a way. See, that needs clarity as well.
Okay.
Because that strongly depends on what we do. Because if we start at, let's say, at Arm's age, like around 5-ish, or maybe even younger, toddler age when they're like 2, then I can imagine 2 toddlers. It doesn't matter if they're Chinese and Ethiopian. They both can't speak. But they can both kind of like have things and show them and offer them and take them away. So like the baseline I thought would be that it's like the ability.
We're not starting with toddlers.
The ability to offer, the ability to take away, the ability to trade, the ability to label, the ability to group, the ability to scale. Like those would be the fundamentals. And then we would give examples of how we do it. That's all.
The examples require a foundation.
How do you mean? Like
that can be replicated and built upon.
Like you were talking about Steve.
Yeah. So like.
And you want to build upon the existing understanding of like information and informatics and.
Well, right now I'm not catering to people from different languages. That's doing too much too quickly. So right now it's just English speakers, people with eyes. And how do we, like, upon what rules? Like, okay, for example, Facebook was created as like a social network for within college, or like it was to rate girls or whatever.
Yeah.
It's become something it never was intended to be.
Yeah.
And it's way bigger. And that's because the users decided to use something in a different way. So that's how I envisioned it. We create, like, it doesn't have to be as well defined as Facebook. Just there needs to be a foundation upon which something can be built, and then the users are like, well, actually, I don't want to use it for this. I want to use it for this. Or I don't like this thing because for me, this is more intuitive. And so I'm going to I'm gonna introduce this thing, and we're like, bro, cool, do your thing. Like there's also a lot more leeway in the sandbox than there is with Facebook, right?
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
But I still think there needs to be a basis upon which it's not just examples. Certain things need to be done. Certain things need to be created, I think, to spark creativity.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. You can't just say, because we could just walk around with a piece of paper and be like, what we did on this piece of paper was this. What do you want to do? I don't think that would have as much creation as if you set certain rules. So it's like, why do games have rules? Because it forces people to be strategic.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Give them rules so that they're able to take those rules and tools and use them in
But that's why, remember at the start, I was saying it's gamified and it's broken down into tiny chunks. So instead of it being like, write a book on Chomsky's speakings, it's think of a front cover size, think of a front cover font, think of a color, think of a title, think of a introduction.
Those are rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's not like I'm saying it's just a tabula rasa and I draw in the corner and then there's clear structure and rules and expectations. They're just broken down into manageable chunks.
Yeah.
And those manageable chunks aggregate into something.
But that's what I mean about the super summary. It's just one of the broken down chunks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are we talking about?
Nothing.
Okay. What time is it?
Time for you to do some push-ups.
I've never done a push-up in my life, huh?
Well, it's the first time for everything. Especially when you have back pain and you might blow your joint out.
Yeah, but I'm on my way out. Why would the last thing I do is exercise? Last thing I'm going to do is fucking drown in a bag of Cheetos.
Because then when I extract your eggs and...
It's 6 past!
What?
How dare you?
No, not how dare you. How?
In a bit, boys.
No, stop.
I'm literally being eaten from the inside. Stop. We can come back to this. Bye, pals.